Crisis at the southern border. Preliminary Customs and Border Patrol data show there were 302,000 migrant encounters along the southwest border in December. That's the highest monthly total ever recorded. And now, as buses of migrants from Texas arrive in northern cities, Democratic mayors across the country are demanding federal help. And joining us now to discuss this issue a lot more is one of the mayors, Denver, Colorado Mayor Mike Johnston. Mike, good to see you, and thanks a lot for being on with us again.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so let's talk about the impact that this is having on your city. You say Denver is almost at a breaking point.
Yeah, I mean, Denver is right now the single largest recipient per capita of any city in America in terms of the number of migrant arrivals. And that is mostly because we are just the first city north on I-25 from El Paso, so where all of the folks end up getting sent as a first stop. But what we see, the current situation is folks enter the country, they have an asylum claim, but because there isn't more capacity at the border, those folks will get sent to a city like Denver, and they will have an asylum claim that is a court date for the year 2029. It's a 6-year wait for that to be processed. And in the meantime, people can't work. And so our big challenge is we need a couple things from the federal government. We need folks to arrive in our cities with work authorization so they can actually support themselves. We need federal dollars to support this, but really we also need a coordinated entry plan. So we have a plan to deploy people to cities across the country based on their capacity, not just have all of them land in 2 or 3 cities, which are taking the greatest brunt of that arrival. And I think it's really not sustainable for us long term.
You mentioned that coordinated plan. That's what you're calling on from the federal government. What does that coordination look like to you?
Yeah, I think the good news is America knows how to do this. We've done this before. We did it with refugees from Ukraine who arrived at the country. We did it with refugees from Afghanistan. We partnered with cities around the country. People came to those cities with work authorization, with federal support, and with a plan to send a number of people that those cities could manage. And so we're working on bringing cities together to have a similar structure so we don't just have the governor of one state deciding where everyone's sent. We actually have cities accepting newcomers based on their capacity. And we think if we did that, we actually could be much more successful. But the real crux of the challenge right now is about work authorization, is that if people come to the cities and can work as they want to do, they can support themselves. If they can't work, we're going to need much more federal support to be able to provide services to folks who are not able to support themselves.
And Mayor, you also believe that a big problem is that many of these migrants are claiming asylum because it can take years for these cases to be heard. Can you talk about that process and why you believe so?
Yeah, I mean, what's happening right now is the capacity at the border is just overwhelmed. There's a 4 to 6 year backlog in immigration cases around the country. And so someone comes in with often a very serious and valid asylum claim. We had a woman here who was a police officer who, refused to tear gas elderly people in Venezuela, and so they came after her in the middle of the night and threatened to kill her, and so she fled her country. These are, in some cases, very serious asylum claims, but because of the backlog, it can take 3 to 6 years for that case to get heard, and in those 3 to 6 years, they're forced to wait in country without work authorization. So what we're saying is whatever the federal government decides the admission policy should be, that entrance to the country should be linked with immediate work authorization, so when folks arrive, they can support themselves, and you can add more administrative capacity to accelerate those asylum claims so they can be decided in 90 days, not in 6 years.
Let's talk about the cost of all of this. You say it will cost Denver over $160 million to deal with this migrant crisis. That is a big chunk of your city's budget. What does this mean for the other things that money was originally allotted to go to?
Yeah, that's not a sustainable path for us. For a city like Denver, that's almost 15% of our entire budget. For comparison, $160 million or $180 million that we're projecting would be the equivalent of our entire city budget for affordable housing and homelessness for the entire year. It would be the entire budget for all of our parks and recreation programming across the entire city. So these are very large impacts, and the reason why we both need that work authorization and need that federal support, and need a plan to help migrants arrive in cities that they want to arrive in. Many folks that arrive in Denver never wanted to or planned to come to Denver. They just got sent here against their will. And so we think a coordinated plan to help them enter the cities where they want to arrive and have networks dramatically relieves that burden.
All right, again, Denver Mayor Mike Johnston, good to see you, and thanks a lot for being on. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.
You got it.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.